Good day, everyone. This is Ma'am Sam, and I will be your teacher for oral communication and context. For our first lesson, we'll be discussing the nature and process of communication. But before that, let us know first the objectives for today's discussion. First, we should be able to define communication. Second, we should be able to explain the process, elements, and nature of communication. So what is communication? Communication is a systematic process through which individuals interact through symbols to create and interpret meaning. In other words, communication is used to stir up the ideas in the mind of another. It is a sharing of thoughts by interacting with a person or group of people. I will show you a diagram. This is the natural flow of the communication process. This will help you understand how communication actually occurs. First, the speaker generates an idea. The speaker then encodes the idea or converts the idea into words or actions. The speaker will transmit or send the message. Then, the receiver gets the message. The receiver decodes or interprets the message based on the context. The receiver then sends or provides the feedback. The things you have read are working under the elements of communication. And now, let's talk about the elements of communication. Communication involves at least 7 elements. What are those? So the first element of communication is the source. The source imagines, creates, and sends the message. In a public speaking situation, the source is the person giving the speech. The source or the speaker begins by determining the message, what to say, and how to say it. The second element of communication is the message. The message or content is the information that the sender wants to relay to the receiver. A message can also be conveyed through a body language and even the tone of voice. The next element of communication is encoding. Encoding refers to the process of taking an idea or mental image, associating that image with words, and then speaking those words in order to convey a message. Encoding is also the process of turning thoughts into communication. The encoder uses a medium to send the message, be it a phone call, email, text message, face-to-face meeting, or other communication tools. The fourth element of communication is channel. The channel or medium used to communicate the message affects how the audience will receive the message. The channel can also refer to the methods we use to communicate, as well as the specific tools we use in the communication process. The fifth element of communication is the receiver. The person whom the message is directed is called the receiver or the interpreter. To comprehend the information from the sender, the receiver must first be able to receive the sender's information and then decode or interpret it. The receiver is the listener, the reader, and the observer. The next element of communication is decoding. The person who receives the message or symbol from the communicator tries to convert the same in such way so that he may extract its meaning to complete his understanding. Just like encoding, it is the process of turning communication into thoughts. And the last element of communication is the feedback. Feedback is the process of ensuring that the receiver has received the message and understood in the same sense as the sender meant it. In other words, the feedback refers to the response or reaction of the receiver to the sender's message. And now, for our last topic, we will be talking about the nature of communication. Communication is a process. Communication as a process means it is a step-by-step activity and it is essentially a two-way process that involves the active participation of both the sender and the receiver. It is also the act or process of using words, sound, signs, or behavior to exchange information or to express your ideas, thoughts, feelings to someone else. Communication is more of an art than science. There is no right or wrong way to communicate, no set of absolute rules to be followed, but there are underlying principles to guide us into effective communication. Communication has a sender and a receiver. Communication occurs between two or more people acting as the speaker or the receiver of the message. In general, communication is a means of connecting people or places. In other words, it is also a way of reaching mutual understanding in which participants not only exchange informations, news, ideas, and feelings, but also they create and share the same meaning. Communication is verbal or non-verbal. Communication can be expressed through written or spoken words or actions of both spoken words and non-verbal actions at the same time. In other words, communication is not all about sending or receiving facts in words. Thus, it involves ideas and emotions that are expressed through signs, symbols, and gestures. Now, let's differentiate verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication refers to the use of language to convey information. Verbal communication skills represent more than speaking abilities. They demonstrate how you deliver and receive messages in both speaking and written interactions. While nonverbal communication is the transmission of messages or signals through nonverbal platforms such as eye contact, facial expression, gesture, posture, and body language. Communication is inevitable. Inevitability means communication is taking place when someone does not want or intend to communicate. In other words, we cannot avoid communicating. We are communicating constantly that even when a person does not want to communicate, he or she is already communicating. Communication is irreversible. This means that what you have said can never be unsaid. In other words, you cannot undo the message that has been received. The same thing happens when you perhaps throw a hurting or offensive words because of anger. And the last but not the least, communication is unrepeatable. Unrepeatability means that an act of communication can never be duplicated. In other words, even if we say the same thing over and over again, the effect of what we said the second, third, or fourth time will not be the same as the first time we said it. So that's it. But before we officially end our discussion, let us first have a summary of what we have learned today. So again, what is communication? Communication is a systematic process through which individuals interact through symbols to create and interpret meaning. Then we have the 7 elements of communication. First, the source, the message, encoding, channel, receiver, decoding, and the feedback. Also, a reminder that the activities for this lesson are already indicated in your modules. Upon answering, please follow your weekly home learning plan. Then remember to write your name, the section, the subject, and the activity number of your modules. So that's it. I hope you learned and enjoyed from our discussion. Thank you and see you on our next lesson.